Shimano's 105 used to be dubbed the group set of the people. It was the go-to choice for a mid-range group set that took the best bits from Shimano's more premium offerings and made them available at a much more reasonable cost. These days, I feel like it's kind of lost that charm a little bit. 105 has experienced some real price creep. For example, on Canyon, one of the cheapest bikes that you can get equipped with 105 is nearly £2,500. But I mean, maybe that's just what passes for mid-range these days. But today I've got a group set that I think fills the gap that 105 left behind. Now, it's not perfect and there are definitely a few things to consider, but the value with this thing is just ridiculous. Really utterly crazy. So yeah, let's check it out. My name, as always, is Luke, and welcome back to Tracefellow. So the current generation of hydraulic group sets from the Chinese manufacturer L-TWOO, they've been on sale for a couple of years at this point, and I covered the 12-speed carbon version when it first came out. But their recently updated R9 disc is probably the best value group set that exists right now, period. An 11-speed group set with hydraulic brakes that, no joke, you can buy right now for less than 120 quid. That's crazy. Now with AliExpress shipping to the UK, I did have to add 23 quid VAT on top of that, but still 140 quid for all this is absolutely phenomenal value. And this isn't sponsored by L-TWOO, by the way. I bought all this myself with my own cash. Just for a bit of reference, an equivalent 105 R7020 setup, so 11-speed mechanical with hydraulic brakes, it doesn't even come close. I mean, for that money, you can get one shifter from Shimano, either left or right, take your pick. So what's the big catch here? Well, I don't think there is one, to be honest with you. That's not to say this group set is perfect, and there are certain areas where 105 is definitely superior, and I'll cover those as we go. But yeah, what you get for the money is absolutely bonkers with this thing. So yeah, let me show you.
Right, so you can get this group set in a retail box like this one, but on the L-TWOO official store on AliExpress, where I got mine, they offer it no box. I assume it's just cheaper for them to ship this way. And yeah, here it is, just a regular cardboard box, but everything inside, well, it's really nicely packaged up and protected, so yeah, nothing was scratched and everything was included. Now, a bit like the 12-speed RX version of this group set that I looked at previously, you can get a version of this R9 with carbon brake levers and derailleur cage, but going all aluminium was cheaper, so yeah, that's obviously what I went with. And the functionality is identical too. The trade-off is a bit of extra weight, but it's not actually too bad on that front. Shifters 585, front derailleur 106, and rear derailleur 248. That's 939 grams total, and the equivalent 105 stuff comes to 930. So yeah, it's basically the same. Now, for those unfamiliar, the shifting is very similar to older Campagnolo group sets. Upshifting with the thumb triggers and downshifting with these levers. Easy peasy. So installation on the whole was fine actually. As long as you have a basic bleed kit and some mineral oil, you're basically set. On this bike, I'm actually swapping over from a mechanical disc setup, so it only took me about an hour or so to get everything on the bike. Now, I won't go into detail on the install here, as L-TWOO already have a pretty comprehensive video showing how it's done, and I'll link that below. But I will say ball head Allen keys are a must. Getting these shifters mounted, accessing these clamping bolts under the rubber of the hoods can be a bit tricky, but other than that, no real surprises on the install. Now, bleeding the brakes is fine for the most part. A basic bleed kit is all you'll need really. No special adapters required or anything, but it has to be said, I did have 2 stabs at bleeding the front brakes. The first time there were still a few bubbles in the lines. But again, L-TWOO have a decent video demonstrating the process, so I'll link that down below too. But honestly, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Also, probably worth mentioning, it uses the Shimano BH59 standard for hydraulic hoses and fittings, which is really useful. So getting replacement olives and barbs and what have you isn't a problem at all. I normally get my stuff from eBay for cheap. But yeah, with that done, let's get this thing on the road. Right, quick sponsor plug here. So all the cycle gear that I'm wearing is from Siroko. I've worked with these guys for ages. And yeah, this time of year, it's getting a little chillier. So I'm rocking their M4 thermal jersey. I've had it a couple years at this point, actually. Really comfortable, great construction, and nice deep pockets at the rear to carry all your stuff. I've also got this vest or gilet, 25 quid for this thing. Plus, when you don't need it, it packs up really small, kind of folds up into itself, and I just carry it in my pocket or strap it under the bars like this. Really useful when the weather is a bit changeable, like it can be this time of year. And these Black Sea bib tights, great padding, keeps the wind off. 50 quid for these things right now. So yeah, check them out. They've got loads of cool gear, and I can get you 10% off everything on the site with my link in the description. Plus, I get a bit of kickback from any sales too, which is pretty cool. Anyway, back to it.
So I've had this group set on the bike now for a couple of weeks at this point, and I've got to say, yeah, I'm pretty impressed. I'm really enjoying using it, actually. So let's kick it off with the positives. So the braking on this group set is absolutely fantastic, to be honest with you. Easily some of the best braking that I've experienced on a road bike group set. I mean, yeah, it's sharp and quick, but not too grabby, if you know what I mean. And I can get pretty much all the braking that I need just using 2 fingers like so. Yeah, honestly, super confidence inspiring. It's basically everything I could ask for in a disc brake group set. Right, onto the big one with this group set, shifting performance. So for the most part, it's totally fine, to be honest with you. So shifting into the chain rings, I can go up into the big ring, no problem, and then thumb trigger into the small. So yeah, that's quick, accurate, precise, a little heavy, you could say, on the action, but overall, no problems there. The rear, right? So I can upshift one at a time, like that, with the thumb trigger. No problems there at all. And again, downshifting with this lever, for the most part, pretty good. But there is one kind of scenario where this lever here, downshifting, does get a little bit caught out. So let me pull over to the side of the road and I'll try and demonstrate. Right then, the rain has just passed. So yeah, let me demonstrate this thing. So shifting one gear at a time on this, absolutely fine. So upshift, downshift, upshift, downshift, no issues. But it's this particular scenario, right? So this lever here, with one full swing, I can get 3 downshifts. So here we go, 1, 2, 3. It's that third click, that third shift, that sometimes doesn't catch at the back. And for whatever reason, it's in this particular scenario. So big chain ring, and then I'm kind of further down the cassette here. That third click, it sometimes doesn't index with the gear properly, and you end up ticking away. For whatever reason, when I'm in the small chain ring, it's always absolutely fine, and I get 3 shifts, no issues. But yeah, in the big ring, well, basically in this scenario, that third gear sometimes won't catch, and I've played around with the barrel adjuster loads to try and fix it, but yeah, for whatever reason, it doesn't catch. One other thing worth mentioning, actually, is that those clicks between gears on that downshift, so 1, 2, 3, those clicks, they're not quite as pronounced and tactile as they are on a Shimano shifter, and I've got one in my backpack, actually, so let me show you. So this is a shifter from a Shimano 105 R7000 group set, so it's fully mechanical, it's not hydraulic, but I can still kind of demonstrate the shifting. So the downshifts on these, they're just so definitive. Each click is really tactile, and you kind of feel it run through the lever. Even when I upshift too, you can feel those individual clicks really distinctly. On the L-TWOO group sets, and also on Sensar group sets as well, that's a kind of similar. It's just a little more washy. You can kind of feel the clicks a little bit as you move through, but it's nowhere near as distinctive as it is shifting on a Shimano shifter like this one. It's kind of witchcraft, to be honest with you. I don't know how they do it, because not only is it nice and clicky and distinctive, but the shift action is also much lighter on Shimano. These ones tend to be a little bit heavier. I think some of that might be to do with the fact that the actual lever that you're moving here is shorter than it is on a Shimano lever, obviously, because you've got the whole brake lever here to kind of downshift. But yeah, the shifting feel on Shimano shifters, it is superior to L-TWOO. I mean, these are great, but yeah, that shift feel is definitely better on a Shimano shifter. So yeah, I kind of wish I could say the shifting was perfect, but I mean, if shifting on a 105 group set was a 10, this would be an 8, if you kind of catch my drift. So it's nearly there. It just lacks a little bit of refinement, but still, I'm incredibly happy with it, actually. And for day-to-day riding, it's absolutely fine. Right then, editing Luke here, and I'm in the thick of it right now. So yeah, after I film that bit, basically stick around to the very end of the video, because in the bonus clip that I sometimes put at the end of some of my episodes, it's the bonus, I spent a bit of time fiddling around with the shifting, and I did this one particular thing that I've not actually done before, and it
made the shifting about twice as good actually as I've just demonstrated. So yeah, stick around to the end, it's pretty interesting.
So yeah, the braking, absolutely phenomenal. Shifting, good, not perfect, 7 or 8 out of 10. But there are a few other things to consider. For example, ergonomics and build quality, pretty freaking good actually. The rubber used on the hoods is fantastic. The shifters themselves are very comfortable. The overall fit and finish is very, very high. And the group set even looks really nice in my opinion. Not much about this screams cheap and budget. I mean, even the gear cables that you get in the group set aren't the really cheap ones. They're the nice polished ones to help kind of reduce friction through the cable run. Another example, the brake calipers. They're really good quality. I've taken a set apart in a previous video and the internals are machined and finished to a really high standard. Plus, they use ceramic brake pistons. On cheaper calipers like these ones, the pistons are often made out of aluminium. Ceramic pistons are more expensive, but they isolate the heat better, they don't kind of corrode under wet or humid conditions, and they don't warp or change shape under repeated heavy braking when you're generating loads of heat. So yeah, these calipers will stand up to a lot of abuse. Yeah, like amazing to see this on a group set so cheap. I mean, if L-TWOO were looking to kind of scalp consumers and squeeze as much money out of you as possible, they certainly wouldn't include these. Now, the calipers do require these proprietary mounting adapters that I've kind of discussed at length in previous videos. I've never had any issues with fitment on any of the frames that I've tried, but one of you lot of viewer, Peter, absolute legend, yeah, he sent me this pic. It's difficult to see, but essentially the top mounting hole on the fork, it's recessed ever so slightly into the carbon, which meant the adapter plate for running 160mm rotors, it didn't actually fit and it fouled ever so slightly on the fork. Now, like I said, I've never had any issues on the 6 or 7 frames that I've fitted these calipers to, but it's worth being cognizant. They're not a standard shape. They don't fit the exact profile of a standard flat mount caliper. It's also worth noting L-TWOO have made some welcome updates to this generation since I last looked at it. For example, I did have a problem with the shifters rattling, but that's now been fixed. Not a peep out of this group set, even on really bumpy roads. And the free stroke adjustment screw on the front is used to basically shorten the lever throw before the brakes engage. It used to be just a grub screw that was non-captive, so if you screwed it in too far, it would just kind of fall out the back into the mechanism. That's now been replaced with this kind of camming system that is kind of held in there so it doesn't fall out. Much better, much more foolproof. Right, quickly, a couple of other bits for the group set nerds like myself that I actually forgot to mention. So firstly, this group set uses Shimano cable pull ratios. So basically that means that if you wanted to, not that you really need to, but you could replace the front derailleur or the rear derailleur with one from a Shimano 11-speed group set like 105. The brake pads that come stock with the group set, they're finned, so they're really good for heat dissipation, and they're a ceramic and copper variety, I believe, and they're really good. I've never felt the need to replace them on any of the group sets from L-TWOO that I've run. On the rear derailleur here, the jockey wheels are replaceable. On some cheap group sets that I've come across, these are actually pinned in place, whereas on these, you've got that Allen bolt there, you can take that out, service these jockey wheels, replace them if they get worn out, and in addition, with that little Allen bolt right there, that means that if it comes to it, you can also replace the whole rear derailleur cage too. So great to see on a group set this cheap. On the cable run for the front derailleur, which is actually this one right here, you don't need to run an inline barrel adjuster like this one. So on my bike, it's hung up at the back here. Hopefully I can show you. In the middle, right there, you see that? That's an inline barrel adjuster on the cable run for the front derailleur, because on this bike, you can't adjust the cable tension on the derailleur itself, whereas on this one, you can. Hopefully you can see that screw right there. That means that you can kind of make micro adjustments to the tension on this cable and index your front derailleur. Again, great to see on a group set this cheap. And finally, long-term durability. So I've only ridden this group set about 250 miles at this point, but I did run the 12-speed carbon version of this group set last year for a couple of thousand miles, and it was totally fine. So I've got no worries on that front with this group set. So look, this thing is unbeatable, in my opinion. I mean, no, it's not perfect, and I know a lot of people don't like those Campag style thumb triggers, but for 140 quid, I don't think you can complain. Is it a 105 killer? In some ways it is, I suppose. I mean, it does provide exactly the same core functionality for a fraction of the price, but it is undeniable. 105, it is better in terms of kind of shift feel and shifting performance. Is it worth twice the cost of the L-TWOO? Maybe a little bit more. I mean, I certainly don't think so, but then I'm a massive cheapskate, as you probably well know. So yeah, let me know what you think. Hit the subscribe button and the like button as well, I guess, and throw me some baguettes into the comments. Those are always welcome. Right, anyway, enough of that. I'll see you next time. Ciao.
Oh, and by the way, I'll put the details of the seller that I used for this group set in the description down below.
It's the bonus clip time.
So I was having a little think over my coffee this morning. I reckon that there's a way that I can quite drastically increase, or potentially increase, the shifting performance of this group set. So essentially, when I was out in Mallorca a few months back, I hired this bike and it had a mechanical Dura-Ace group set, and it was a lovely group set. The shifting was phenomenal, and it's similar to this one. So 11-speed mechanical with hydraulic brakes, but they set the bike up from the shop in a slightly different way than I've set mine up here. So basically, on this bike, I use the frame stops. So what that amounts to is, here you've got the cable outer, and then it stops right here at this frame stop, and then only the cable itself, the gear cable, travels through the frame under the bottom bracket and then out the back. And then again, there's a kind of a frame stop here. On the bike I used, they ran a continuous run of cable housing or cable outer all the way through the frame and then out the back, because I think on this cable run there's quite a lot of friction underneath the bottom bracket, because there's this kind of plastic routing cap that the cable runs over the top, and I think that produces quite a lot of friction. So I'm going to give it a go. I think I can drill out the frame stops and then just run a length of cable outer all the way through the frame. So I'm going to give that a go. Might be a complete waste of time, but I reckon it could assist with the shifting performance of this group set. So give me a few minutes and I'll get it set up.
So I've been building bikes for a little while, and yeah, whenever I've had a bike where the cables are routed through the frame, except for the fully internally routed frames like this one where everything is hidden and the brake hoses and cables go through the headset, I've always used the frame stops. It's how the frame is designed, so I just assumed this was the best way, plus it saves a bit of weight not running that gear housing all the way through. But after this experience, I don't think I'll use those frame stops anymore.
Okay, so that is, yes, so much better than it was before. I didn't think it'd make that much difference, to be honest with you, but yeah, the action is a lot lighter on that downshift lever, and you can even feel the kind of the separations between gears much more than you could before. It's still not quite as good as 105, but it is much, much better. And in the areas where it struggled on the cassette to catch that last gear, it doesn't struggle anymore. So yeah, really, really chuffed. Wow, okay, all right. Let me get this in a tripod and I'll quickly show you. Okay, so this is where it kind of struggled before. So one full swing, and we've gone up 3 gears. Yeah, try again. Yeah, all the way up 3 and again. 3 gears, one more time, boom. Look at that. Let's try one more time, all the way to the bottom here, and 3 gears. Sorted. Yeah, so that is so much better than it was before. And like I said, the action to shift is much lighter as well. Right, so I'll have to fill in that hole in the frame there to stop water coming in, because there was a bung there. But I mean, overall, what a result for this thing. The shifting is honestly much better than it was before. A much lighter action, really consistent gear. I mean, that easily bumps this group set up to like a 9 out of 10, I suppose. I mean, yeah, kind of makes it a bit of a 105 killer, to be honest with you. Really, really good. Although it has to be said, I don't think I mentioned it in the video, the shifting at the front is good, but the 105 front derailleur is just a thing of beauty. I don't know how they do it really, but it's nice and small and compact, but yeah, easy to tune and keeps the shift action nice and light. Yeah, so this front derailleur can't quite keep up with that, but still, I've had no problems with it and it's absolutely fine. And yeah, with the shifting at the back sorted now, whoa, yeah, makes this group set even easier to recommend. For 140 quid, you can't go wrong with this thing. So yeah, if you do end up buying one, try and make sure you route the cable outer all the way through the frame to get the best shifting in the back. But I mean, seriously, what a result. Absolutely banging. Right, anyway, on that bombshell, I suppose, yeah, I'll see you later. Right, ciao.
Okay, so riding round this morning. The shifting at the back is so much better. Light, quick, precise, accurate. Yeah, I've tried to trip it up and I just can't. So yeah, what a difference running this cable outer through the bike has made. Yeah, I mean, I can probably say some of the nicest shifting out of a mechanical group set that I've kind of experienced, really. Yeah, what a massive difference that made. And 140 quid for this thing, utterly ridiculous.